Hi, everyone. It's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and I'm bringing you the reading for the ingress of Mercury into the sign of Pisces, which is happening this evening in the US at 6:32 p.m. Mountain Time. This is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. And I wanted to talk about this event. It's not necessarily a rare happening. It does happen once a year, but there's a few things that are going along with it as Mercury is in Pisces over the next month that I feel make this ingress a little more significant. So first, I would like to talk about what Mercury and Pisces are all about. Mercury in astrology is symbolic of logic. It's symbolic of thinking. It's symbolic of communicating. Mercury was the winged messenger that actually could go between earth and heaven, bringing information from the gods. So there's something about Mercury that's related to understanding, knowing, but also logic, data, facts, that kind of thing. Now, Mercury in Pisces is a little unusual because Pisces is completely the opposite. Pisces is about feeling. It's a water energy dealing with emotion and sensitivity. So when we have Mercury, the logical mind, in the sign of Pisces, which is, again, dealing with our emotions and feelings, we get sort of an unusual way of thinking. Mercury is actually considered what's in its fall during being in the sign of Pisces, because it's almost like the two energies, Mercury and Pisces, just are so opposite from one another. They don't feel in the same way, or they don't think in the same way. They have kind of a hard time relating to one another. So if you actually look at Gemini, the sign of Gemini in the zodiac, which is ruled by Mercury, and you look at the sign of Pisces in the zodiac, they create what's called a square, or a 90-degree angle from one another. And a square offers us the opportunity to work something out. That's often how that energy manifests, because we start to see, oh, these two signs don't get each other, and you have to work a little bit harder to actually manifest their possibilities. So again, going back to Mercury in the sign of Pisces, so how would that actually manifest? You could say it could manifest as our imagination, because if Mercury is how we think and Pisces is all about feeling and subtlety and sensitivity, one of the things Pisces rules is our creative imagination. So during this month, with Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces, one of the things that we could focus on are creative pursuits, where we have to use our intellect in a creative way, whether that's making music or writing poetry or creative writing, something that stimulates that Piscean part of ourselves, using the mind and logic and being rational in the process. Some other manifestations of Mercury in Pisces: communicating with spirituality, intuition. That's a really big one, intuition, because Pisces is all about feeling again. And so when we can act or communicate from our intuitive self, that really is the key to working with Mercury in Pisces. Also, being helpful, being compassionate, charitable, romantic, and idealistic. Now, some of the downfalls of Pisces can be dependence, dreaminess, vagueness, confusion, self-destruction, and martyrdom. So what that means is that sometimes the way that Pisces can manifest is we avoid dealing with reality. You know, we maybe create fantasy around things, or we idealize things. We see them the way that we want to see them, but it's not really the way that they actually are. And that's where Mercury in this combination can actually assist Pisces, because Mercury is like, okay, logic, you know, using the mind, thinking. And so Mercury can assist Pisces to actually be a little more exacting, you know, in the midst of some of the Pisces kind of, you know, ebb and flow of confusion and feeling that we, you know, aren't certain about something. And that can happen with Pisces. We can sort of trick ourselves into thinking that we don't know when we actually do know. We just don't want to move forward. You know, one of the things that Pisces rules actually is endings. You know, it's the final sign of the zodiac before it repeats again, starting with Aries, you know, springtime moving forth. So Pisces is really kind of about that mutable energy of Pisces being able to drift this way and that when it's time to release, to let go, and to move on. And one of the things that can really help us during this time is some type of meditative practice, or something that allows us to get perspective on, you know, the mind, where we can step back and start to see more of the machinations of the mind and the way that it can kind of trick us, you know, and learning how to step back. Now, again, that doesn't mean you don't take action on anything. It just means being able to get a spiritual perspective on something, so that if you do need to take action, that you're not attached in a way that's causing you or other people emotional harm, you know, because that's something, unfortunately, that Pisces can create sort of unconsciously when it's not in a more elevated expression, where it's it wants to just kind of almost like get out of it, so out of it that it doesn't have to deal, you know. And that's why Pisces can rule things like addiction, drug addiction, you know, things, unhealthy things that we choose to do in order to transcend. That's Pisces, but it's not in a really valuable way. It's a very easy way of transcending that actually doesn't really help us grow spiritually. It really hinders us and keeps us or prevents us from growing. So that's a little bit about Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces. It's going to be there for close to a month, until Mercury moves into the sign of Taurus on the 10th of April. And I wanted to just point out some other things that are happening, because we are really in a very strong Piscean time right now. I mean, not only is the sun right here today in the sign of Pisces, but when we move on into the month on the 13th of March, you're going to see the sun meeting up right here with Neptune. Okay, and Neptune's in the sign of Pisces too, and Neptune rules Pisces. So the sun, being our vitality and our creative life force, is connecting with Neptune, the planet of spirituality, compassion, transcendence. So we're really going to want to express ourselves in this very Piscean, Neptunian way. So then Mercury's also going to be in the sign of Pisces at the time. So our thinking too is going to be joining the sun and Neptune in this realm. So again, lots of heavy Piscean influence coming up this month. And that's really wonderful. Like, this is an amazing creative opportunity, if you want to do any initiation of a creative venture in your life. The day on the 13th that the Sun and Neptune come together could be an extremely wonderful, powerful symbol for expressing our creative self, or starting some type of spiritual practice, meditation, whatever it is for you, but allowing us to tap into that ability to practice transcendence for the purpose of not getting entangled into drama and into any of the, fear or whatever it is that comes up when we have to, or when we think about our lives and approaching sensitive issues in our lives. Having an ability to step back and to have a bigger spiritual picture about things helps us navigate, because we're not so stuck in the detail of everything. We can see ourselves as spiritual people, and we can see the other as a spiritual person, and realize that we're sort of on a larger journey that isn't necessarily reliant on us, keeping everything exactly the same. We have to have growth. We have to have change, and having some kind of spiritual understanding can help us do that better. And then, of course, with Mercury being in the sign of Pisces for this month or so, that too is going to help us step back. That too will help us facilitate and navigate some of these changes that may be coming up for ourselves. And speaking of changes, the full moon is coming up in the sign of Virgo on the 18th of March. And when the moon is full, it's symbolic of revelation. It often reveals things. We understand things more fully at full moon times. And at this particular full moon, the moon will be in Virgo, but the sun, again, will be in the sign of Pisces. And Virgo, moon in Virgo is about, how feeling very specific things, knowing what you feel, because it's been analyzed and you understand it from an analytical perspective. So that's what the full moon's going to be bringing up for people, is this, really wanting to understand the facts about things. And that's helpful with all of this Pisces influence this month. And then moving on, we're going to have Mercury on the 21st of March, conjuncting Jupiter. So here we have, if we look at this chart, Jupiter's also in the sign of Pisces. Expansion, philosophical expansion, growth, optimism in this very compassionate, sensitive sign of Pisces, empathetic sign. So it's saying the way that we want to collectively be growing and expanding right now is really to understand others in a very empathetic way. And it's saying that one of the ways that we can expand and grow our own lives too is going back to those Piscean principles of like a spiritual practice of transcendence. It can also be being very empathetic with people, being very compassionate and understanding with people. But again, the blind side of Pisces is becoming a martyr, sacrificing yourself. And you kind of wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Get me out of here. So that again would be sort of like this expansion, almost like to the max or too much in Pisces would be just like, not really having a clear understanding of how much to give, versus where to have boundaries. Because Jupiter doesn't always have great boundaries. It just wants to grow, get big. So you'll have Mercury there, the thinking mind, with Jupiter on the 21st of March. And, that will just be bringing up, the mind and this principle of growth coming together. That's actually a really positive symbol, because Jupiter is very comfortable in Pisces. So it's going to be helping Mercury in Pisces at that time kind of navigate things a little bit better, and also giving it some some belief that things will work out, no matter what. So if things need to be spoken about or clarified or whatever it is, with that Mercury Jupiter, we'll be feeling some optimism about being able to face things better. And speaking of facing things better, finally at the end of the month, Mercury will be sextiling Pluto. And you can see Pluto's in Capricorn in this chart, about 27 degrees, and Mercury will have moved forward into what's called a sextile, or a 60-degree angle to Pluto. And Pluto's about death and regeneration, revealing what's hidden. It does want us to be able to also regenerate, spiritually, and grow. It's about soul growth. So Pluto will just be working with Pisces, Mercury and Pisces at that time, to help us confront and process, digest, change within our mental structure, and reveal to us maybe where we haven't been seeing things clearly, and helping us to uncover a clearer path forward for ourselves. So I wanted to end this reading with a couple of things. One is pulling a card from a tarot deck, and I'd like to know, what is a message that will help us during this month of Mercury in Pisces, and Mercury connecting with a lot of other planets, and the full moon coming up. What will help us navigate this Mercury in Pisces time? That's what I'd like to know from this tarot deck. By the way, this is the Aleister Crowley tarot deck. And what will help us this month as Mercury is ingressing into Pisces? Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just pick one. Here we are. Ooh, Shiva, the pillar of fire. And in this deck, what that means is the astral light, spiritual fulfillment of a high order, the head center, illumination, mystic revelation. And this is a fire element related to the tarot. Spiritual fulfillment of a high order, the head center, illumination, mystic revelation. What I feel when I read this is just, again, about this Piscean theme of connecting with our spiritual center and being able to see a larger order, or a bigger picture, or a more spiritual perspective on life, so that we're not as attached to whatever it is that we might be struggling with, So not that it means you ignore something or you don't address it, but if you can have a spiritual practice and therefore spiritual perspective about life, it can give you the room to approach things with a little more detachment and ability to address things with clarity, and to actually make decisions. Because when we're feeling too kind of floaty, or we don't really, want to deal or address things, we can live in uncertainty for a very, 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 very long time. And we really want to avoid that pitfall with Mercury in Pisces and with all of this other Piscean energy that's going on at this time. And I'll leave you with a quote from a book called Walking in This World by Julia Cameron. It's actually a Lin Yu Tang quote. And he writes, "The proper use of imagination is to give beauty to the world. The gift of imagination is used to cast over the commonplace workday world a veil of beauty and make it throb with aesthetic enjoyment." So he's talking about bringing creativity into our everyday life. And this is probably the best message of Mercury in Pisces, is about the ability to tap into our creative path. And we're all creative in some way. And to allow that to become a part of our everyday existence. Because if we're feeling connected to ourselves creatively, very often we don't need to be reaching out in other ways that might be less helpful for ourselves or less fulfilling for ourselves, because that act of creativity is a spiritual dialogue that we have with existence as we become a vessel for the creative spirit to move through us. And we literally like lose our ego in that process. We become egoless, which is part of what a spiritual practice is all about. But we do it by connecting to our creative expression. And through that process, we are filled with spirit. We are completely filled. And I think that is the message, not only of Mercury in Pisces, but all of these other planets, the Sun, the Jupiter in the sign of Pisces right now, and Neptune, that we have an opportunity to connect with ourselves creatively in order to feel connected to a bigger source in the universe. And through that, we feel fulfilled. And again, don't have to reach out so much for other ways of seeking fulfillment that might not be as good for us or healthy for us or other people. Thank you so much for watching my video. We'll see you at the next one. I do readings if you'd like. I'll have my contact information in the notes below. And thank you so much. Take care. Bye.